The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing games are missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, once again, guys, it is in fact another one of those aftermath lives. You know, these are quite popular on the channel. You guys like these, so that's why I keep doing them, and I quite enjoy them because I feel like they capture the moments of these fights after the fights, and they're always fun to go back and revisit. But this one's a special one because this fight was a special fight on this channel. You know, this hasn't just been a couple of weeks when they first signed the fight, or a couple of months when they first signed the fights. This has actually been a 9-month journey because we've been talking about this matchup since September of last year when you know, I made that video back in September, and you know, it's been a very, very special build up to the fight. Brian Norman Jr., Jin Sasaki, this is the aftermath to that fight, and it produced what I believe at this moment in time, on this fine day of June 21st, 2025, at this moment in time, it is the front runner for the 2025 knockout of the year. So really just devastating stuff from Brian Norman Jr. I feel like with each and every passing fight, Brian Norman Jr. is starting to establish himself as one of the most vicious fighters in boxing, and one of the most versatile knockout punchers in boxing, because when he fought Santion, it was the left uppercut. When he was Derek Cuevas, he dropped him with a jab. And in this fight, it was a left hook. So he's showing you that not only can he knock you out, but he can knock you out with different hands, different punches. And it's always going to be sensational because he really is punching like that. So a lot to discuss from his side of things. Also, a lot to discuss from the Jin Sasaki side of things. You know, I just dropped a video about 7 or 8 hours ago about Jin, and giving you guys an update on him, as well as, you know, giving some of my thoughts on him. It's doing pretty well on the channel, so go check that out as well. But we'll talk about Jin Sasaki as well, because I think a lot of people are they're intrigued about, you know, what could be next for him moving forward. What's his future in boxing and the welterweight division? So a lot to discuss. But before we get into like our talking points and those kind of things, we're going to go ahead and take some time to acknowledge the people that have already came in and made their presence felt, and the ones that are commenting. You know, shout out to you guys. Let me see. My computer's being a little slow. But yeah, shout out to you guys. Let me see. Wait. But yeah, hold on. This is going crazy. So we'll go with I can't highlight the comments right now because my computer's being slow, but I'll just read them without highlighting them. We got my man, who we got? Jesus M in the building. We got Jesus. Jesus says, saludos, BT. Good to see you, Jesus. As always, long-time viewer. Kicking it with Kid says, what's up, man? Finally catching a live at the beginning. Yes, good to see you, champ. Good to see you here. You know, I'm glad you get to catch you from the beginning. Kyoto says the outcome of the fight was worst. Was the worst case, but also good. Somehow Jin is free of any physical damage, but you're giving context about Jin and his team made this loss hurt more. Yeah, I mean, it's just the truth. Like it's been, you know, they really don't focus on defense there, and you know, and I don't want to just single them out. I don't think it's specifically a Hachiochi Nakaya boxing gym problem. I think it's a Japanese boxing problem, because the philosophy of Japanese boxing is to punch to the target, come forward, you know, be explosive, and there's always that underlying culture of the Bushido code, the warrior spirit, and you know, Jin is probably one of the best representations of that. So yeah. Reverse Lee says another Japan stream. Yes, sir. David Esther, good to see you, champ. He says Brian Norman Jr. is that dude. Rocky Austin says, I remember you were hyping Jin Sasaki too much. Nah, actually, I don't think I was. You know, he was actually what I said he was. He was a dangerous puncher, a flawed fighter. And if you go back and you watch every video I did in the build to the fight, I said Brian Norman Jr. is going to have to beat up on Jin and get him carried out the ring. And guess what? That's exactly what played out. So I think Jin, he pretty much lived up to what I thought he would be. He was flawed, and all those flaws got exposed to the highest degree. But we'll get into it later on in the live. I still feel like Jin Sasaki can beat a lot of guys in this weight class. Brian Norman just not one of them, because Brian Norman Jr., I know some of you guys may not want to accept this, because there are a lot of people that think little of Brian Norman Jr. because of what happened with Boots, or what didn't happen with Boots, him not taking the fight, turning it down or whatever. But Brian Norman Jr. might actually just be really, really good. That's something to really consider. So give it some time. Boxing has a way of wins and losses aging themselves, and we normally see do the wins age well or do they age poorly. So let's give it a little time. Did I watch the Canelo Crawford press conference? Yes, I listened to it while I was getting ready for this live. It wasn't that bad. Tomorrow I'll probably go live and talk about that. Tomorrow or Monday I'll talk about it. But I liked Canelo kind of telling Crawford, like, look, I know Turkey's on your side, but Turkey can't save you. So I thought that was pretty cool. Norman is really coming into his own as a fighter. He's developing very well, and he's getting better and better. More dangerous, yeah, for sure. So I'm excited for him. I think like it's been a long time. You guys tell me, who was the last American fighter who could punch like Brian Norman Jr. but also had his level of charisma? Because he talks well. He's very good to hear when you listen to him in interviews and things like that. He's got a good blend of his boxing style, but also like charisma and personality. And I feel like American boxing has been missing that, because the guys that have personality sometimes fight very negative, and then the guys that are aggressive don't really like have charisma. So he's got a little bit of both, and I think because of that, he's got a chance to be a legitimate star in the sport. But that being said, man, let me get into some of these talking points, because I have a lot I do want to get into, but hold on, my computer like froze up on me. So hold on, give me 1 second. I think one of the main things people I want to address is, how much credit, and I'll put the banner on the screen. How much credit does Brian Norman Jr. actually deserve for beating Jin Sasaki? Because really and truthfully, if we do look at the resume on paper, he is a high level, fighter at the Asian level. This is really his first fight on the world level, and he got severely done up by Brian Norman Jr. So how much credit does he deserve for it? And for me, I'm gonna give him a good amount of credit, because not because of the opponent so much, but it's more so like how he beat the opponent. Because if you look at Brian Norman Jr.'s last couple wins, last couple of fights, when he fought Derek Cuevas, he was very much on the front foot. When he fought Giovanni Santillan, he was also on the front foot as well. But in this fight, he held his ground a little bit more, but he also took those little half steps back and became more of the counterpuncher. So it does speak a little bit to the power of Jin Sasaki that he turned Brian Norman Jr. into the counterpuncher. There was enough respect there, and Brian Norman Sr. being the astute trainer he is, there was enough awareness there to know that, hey, we have to, at some point in this fight, which I thought would be the case, box and become the counterpuncher. Which, let's be real, Brian Norman Jr. hadn't really shown himself to be the counterpuncher to this point in his career. So to me, I'm impressed with what went into I'm impressed with the approach and how they dissected a guy who is a real puncher. Jin Sasaki, while he may not have the pedigree of a top tier contender, Jin Sasaki is a guy that, without a shadow of a doubt, if you go watch his highlights, if you go look at his knockout ratio, that dude is a real puncher, right? So he wasn't just some game guy that you could get rounds in with and, knock out later. No. He was a guy that you had to be switched on with for every second of the fight, because he's going to come, he's going to be reckless, he's going to be wild, and he can actually punch. So I'm impressed with Brian Norman Jr. with how he counterpunched him and did it from the very first round. He just became a counterpuncher very early on. Is Jin Sasaki a hard guy to counterpunch? No, not necessarily. But there is something to be said when you have a guy who will let his hands go. Sometimes guys see some leather coming their way, and they don't know how to deal with that. So Brian Norman Jr., to me, what he showed in this fight to me was composure. He showed maturity. He showed the ability to time a fighter, and he showed a boxing IQ, which is something that he never really was talked about. So, I give him credit. Rocky says that Jin tried too hard to be macho against Norman, too cocky, dropped his guard, leaving his chin open. He underestimated Norman's power. Judging by what he said in this interview, I feel like he did maybe a little underestimate Norman's power, but I don't think Jin Sasaki fought any differently this fight than he normally fights. He did what got him to the dance, and what got him to the dance was, being that gunslinger, being that aggressive fighter, throwing caution to the wind. The same reasons why he's exciting is the same reason why he got done up like that. So like I said in my last video, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and that's just what it is. Obviously, he has to make some adjustments moving forward. Shout out to my man Talkers. He said, "Good to see Suzaki is seemingly regaining his memory. Scary KO, but I could see it coming." Yeah, I'm happy to see that he's fine, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he comes back from this, because it's not in boxing and in life. It's not about losing. It's really and truthfully about how do you bounce back from your losses. So he's still 23. We'll see how he can come back, but one thing's for sure, and two things are for certain. He needs to really make some real adjustments to his style. So we'll see how he responds to that. BT, what did you think of Sora Tanaka's performance? Who should he fight next? I thought Sora Tanaka was very, very, kind of like Jin, reckless, hittable. But the thing is, he's fighting at the OBPF level, so it's not going to get that exposed. His opponent was durable. His opponent came to fight. Takuru Kobata, I think that was his name, 14-7, southpaw. But, if he don't correct those things, he's a knockout loss waiting to happen too. And I think him and Jin will fight at some point in the future. Yeah. And Talkers, make sure you guys go follow him on Instagram. He says Norman is 10 times the fighter that got dropped by a great talent at 24 years old. And he's 1,000% right. I saw Brian. I was there at the Turning Stone Casino the night he fought Boca Chica, and he made a whole lot of adjustments, a whole lot of adjustments from then to now, tweaked his style from then to now, and that's a credit to him being a teachable fighter, and that's a credit to his father, seeing the mistakes and correcting them quickly and swiftly. That's what the great trainers and the really good fighters do. So, yeah, I'm with that. All right, last comment before I get into my next talking point. He went into his backyard, won every round with 2 knockdowns and a 5th round KO. Yeah, exactly. I can't hate on that at all. I mean, Japan's a very hard place to win. I mean, we've had a lot of world title fights in Japan over the last month. We had it started with Angelo Leo versus Kameda. That was a very difficult fight. Angelo Leo got out of there with the majority decision. I thought it should have been a UD, but that was a difficult fight because of Kameda's veteran tactics. A couple of days after that, you had Eduardo Sugar Nunez fought Masanori Rikishi. Nunez, big knockout punch, had to show something different. Like the crazy thing is, in these 3 recent world title fights in Japan, the foreign fighters had to show something different in their styles to get over the hump. Angelo Leo had to show his jab and box more. Sugar Nunez had to show off his ability to cut off the ring and be patient against Masanori Rikishi, who came in with a great game plan. And then Brian Norman Jr. had to be the counterpuncher. So every foreign fighter that came to Japan, even though they won, they had to show something different in these fights to get over the hump against Kameda, Rikishi, and Jin Sasaki, respectively. So really intriguing stuff, really intriguing stuff over the last month here in Japan. That being said, guys, let's just get to it, because I know you guys want to hear me talk about this. I know people they want to hear what I think about this. They want, and it's a popular topic when it comes to Brian Norman Jr. in the welterweight division. So look, Jaron Ennis, in my opinion, versus Brian Norman Jr. should be happening right now. As far as what should be happening next, it should be Jaron Ennis and it should be Brian Norman Jr. I feel like this is the biggest fight both of them can get. Now, Boots going to 154 is great for that division. There are a lot of great fights to be made, but I'll be honest with you guys, as I always am, I don't think Jaron Ennis is going to get those big fights as quickly as you guys think. I mean, let's look, right? But before I get into Brian Norman and Boots and Boots announcing the move up to 54 and all that stuff, let me just get into like the current landscape and what's going on, right? Because that needs to be addressed. So let's go to screen share, right? If we go to 154, right? So here we go. This is the 154 division as it presently stands. So you got the IBF champion Bakram Murzalia. Now, Boots has an IBF belt, so he has standing with the IBF. I'm sure that he could easily get a world title shot if he wanted to. And on top of that, nobody's exactly running to fight Bakram. He hasn't had the easiest go of things getting these world title fights, even though he's champion. So that's a possibility. I personally don't think they will go to that fight because Bakram is a dangerous fight, and right now the reward doesn't match the risk, right? So you have that fight. Crawford is moving up, so Ioannis Talise is going to be elevated to full champion, or he's fighting for the interim belt. They just announced, in fact, let me find it right quick for you guys. They just announced Ioannis Talise. Where is he? I have it right over here. Where is it? So look, they just announced Ioannis Talise's next fight. He's fighting for the interim belt August 23rd in Orlando against Abbas Barrow from Germany. And this is actually on Talkers' Twitter. Make sure you guys go follow Talkers on Twitter at @atalkers5. Good account, good information. But yeah, he's fighting him for the interim title. So Ioannis Talise, who was actually a guy that I thought Boots would fight, he's going to be busy. He's not going to fight Boots right away. Right now, Boots, by his own admission, because a lot of you guys have been talking about the Virgil Ortiz fight. Now, he did an interview, and I'm not going to play it here, but it's right here from YSM Sports Media. Make sure you guys go subscribe to my boy Jamil Parker's channel, YSM Sports Media, one of the best in the business, holding it down from Philly all the way up and down the East Coast and all over America. Great channel. But he said in this interview right here that that when he decided he wanted to move to 154, that he reached out to Virgil Ortiz for a fight 154, but Virgil Ortiz, as many of us know, is dealing with a hand injury, so they won't fight right away. And on top of that, Virgil is more than likely going to fight Boachuk. That's been floated out. A Boachuk rematch has been floated around out there. So if that's the case, that already takes two of the guys that Boots could fight at 54 away from him, because he's going to be fighting. They're going to be fighting each other again. So look, I don't think he fights Bakram because of the money. I don't think he's going to fight Boachuk or Virgil right away. So that leaves you with who? What? Xander Zayas is going to fight for the IBF for the WBO title against Jorge Garcia Perez next month. So you're left with the likes of guys like Josh Kelly, Magomed Kurbanov, Jesus Ramos. It's not a lot of big names that are free right now at this moment in time. Maybe Boots can do Israel Madrimov, but does he want to do that fight? I mean, Madrimov's not gonna. He's not a big name, even though he fought Crawford. He's still not a big name. So there's not really as much as you guys think there at 54 right now for Boots. You got Charles Conwell, who just lost. That probably would have been a good fight for Boots if Charles Conwell would have not lost to Jorge Perez, but he lost. So if Boots fights him, you're fighting a guy coming off a loss. That don't look so good. Callum Walsh, he's a big ticket seller. They're not going to match Callum Walsh with Boots. So all I'm saying is, and I'm painting the picture for you guys. I'm setting the table to let you guys know that the best fight to make for the career of Jaron Ennis right now is actually Brian Oman Jr. And guess what? The same thing applies to Brian Oman. The best fight to make in his career is also Jaron Ennis. And guess what, guys? Over the last year, because of Boots picking up a title and looking great against Ioannis, and Brian Oman defending his belt 2 times and scoring a highlight reel knockout here in Japan, guess what, guys? A year later, that fight is much bigger and more significant because now, Brian Oman Jr.'s stock has went up. He's a solidified, legitimate champion now. When the offer was made to him, there were a lot of questions about Brian Oman Jr. How good is Brian Oman Jr.? He just damn near got the belt. So they should fight each other next. I know Boots has said that he can't make the weight, which, if that is the case, that is cause for legitimate concern. And I'm not nobody to tell a fighter stay in the weight class because you can't. If you can't make the weight, you can't make the weight. You can't make the weight. But I think Boots can make the weight. I really do think he can make the weight. And the reason I think he can make the weight is because I think him announcing the move to 154, and it's my opinion, and I'm going to stand on it. I don't think it's a coincidence that he waited till Brian Oman Jr. fight week to announce he was moving up. I think that he felt some type of way about Brian Oman turning down the fight and not fighting him right away. And he, in other interviews, Jaron Ennis has gotten out of character. Jaron Ennis is a nice, respectable person. I've never heard him really talk trash about many fighters, if any. He's the only fighter I've heard say. Brian Oman is the only fighter I've heard Jaron Ennis say in an interview that he's trash. So he feels some type of way about them, maybe what they've been saying in their interviews. But it's the biggest fight he can. It's the biggest fight he can get right now, and the most significant fight he can get right now, because it's a true number 1 versus number 2. Stanionis was not. I'm sorry. I hate to rain on everybody's parade, but I said it back then. I said it back then when the fight got made and they put the Ring Magazine belt online. I was standing on it back then. I'm gonna stand on it right now. That was not the true number 1 versus number 2. Stanionis is a good fighter. I don't think he's as good as a lot of the Jaron Ennis fans will make you believe, because, you know, he had a lot of close fights with, you know, fringe contenders. So, you know, it's debatable where he really is in the division, but he's a good fighter. This, to me, is the true number one versus number two. Boots is a solidified guy, unified champion. Brian Norman is, you know, legitimate solidified champion who's been knocking people out and putting people on highlight reels like it's nobody's business. So I would like if I would like to see Boots try to revisit that negotiation one more time and call their bluff. Because look, I'm gonna go back to screen share. I'm gonna go back to screen share and I'm gonna pull out receipts, because people like to always bring out receipts and these kind of things, right? So this was not so long ago. This was back not that long ago. This is like right when the Jin Sasaki fight was being reported. You know, Eddie Hearn was getting all up in the interviews, and this is what Eddie Hearn said. This is what Eddie Hearn literally said about a Brian Norman Jr. fight. And mind you, Eddie Hearn is Jaron Ennis' promoter. So anything that your promoter says on your behalf is basically what you're saying, because that's who you're paying to promote you. So if he's saying this is basically like, whether it's fair or not, it's just the nature of it. Like, he is your promoter, so we have to take what he says for you at face value. Just is what it is. So here's what Eddie Hearn said. He said, and I quote, "Brian Norman Jr. is absolutely available now. We made them an offer last week, and we said to them, if you're taking that fight with Jin Sasaki, let's lock the fight in for after that in October, November, or December, whenever." And Team Norman's team came back and said, we don't want to talk about any other fight until we have this fight, right? Fair enough. But Eddie Hearn set the principle of making the Brian Norman fight after the Jin Sasaki fight. So if Eddie Hearn is already saying make the fight after the Jin Sasaki fight, so that was the plan. That was always the plan. Jin Sasaki went to Vegas when Norman fought Cuevas, because guess what, guys? The deal was already in place. They were gonna fight. That wasn't a coincidence that he was there and he called him out. They were gonna fight, and I knew this because I know people from Jin Sasaki's gym, and then I know from other people in the business, like other journalists, like Daisuke Segura. These guys, it was already known in boxing circles that they were gonna fight. So what I'm saying is this: Eddie Hearn and Jaron Ennis, we've seen it with other things that have nothing to do with Brian Norman Jr. We've seen it with the Teofimo Lopez situation. They are not on the same accord, right? Because when Eddie Hearn started negotiating the Teofimo Lopez fight, Boots said, "Nah, go get me Stanionis." So this is not like this is not an uncommon occurrence. Like, Eddie Hearn and Jaron Ennis have not been on the same page with their plan, their roadmap, and I feel like it shined itself here because this is a clear contradiction. Maybe Boots wanted to go to 154. But Eddie Hearn wanted to go to he wanted to fight Brian Norman Jr. And guess what? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is why fighters have to be careful what they say, because anything in this boxing game can and will be held against you. Where is it? Because I got all kinds of tabs open. So this is back also in December on good old YSN Sports Media's channel. And I remember I was in Japan when this happened. This is like 6 months ago. Turki Al-Sheikh and the fine folks at Riyadh Season, they made Jaron Ennis an offer. They made him an offer to fight Virgil Ortiz at 154. And the fight was turned down because the big talking point from the Boots side of things was the weight. They wanted to fight at 147 against Virgil, but we know Virgil can't make 147 because he had the documented problems against Stanionis. So he said in this interview that he wanted to stay at 47 so he could actually take a belt from a champion. And he still had it in his mind at that point in time that he wanted to be the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. So the Brian Norman fight is a chance for Boots to further solidify and stand on what he said he wanted to do. But, you know, now he's had a change of tune, but his promoter wanted him at 47. So, you know, I just think, look, in my opinion, just to say it bluntly, fuck the past. I don't care about the past. Just, we have the now. I'm going to tell you guys what's going to happen. Jaron Ennis is going to go to 154. He's not going to get these fights that you guys think he's going to get. Let me see. Let me go to the rankings. In fact, let's try to predict who will fight, because he's not going to get none of these big names you guys think he's going to get, because they're all tied up. Virgil has an injury. let's see who's a matchroom fighter who's a matchroom boxing fighter that Jaron Ennis can just wash. That's not a big money name. Look, you know what? I'll tell you guys right now. This fight right here, I'm gonna highlight who I think Jaron Ennis is gonna fight. He's gonna fight Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly's a matchroom fighter. He's highly ranked. You know, his stock's not that high. That's a guy Boots can look great against. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now. Josh Kelly or Kyle Mean Agjarko. Those are the two guys I think Jaron Ennis is gonna fight at 154 for his first fight. If not those guys, then maybe a guy like Ramos or maybe like yeah. You know what? Let's just stick with the matchroom guys. I'm gonna say he fights Josh Kelly or Kyle Mean Agjarko for his first fight at 154. And when he does, I don't want anybody to act surprised. I already told you guys on June 21st, 2025, he's gonna fight one of Eddie Hearn's guys. So he may fight these guys, and then maybe, you know, it's not even for sure that Virgil Ortiz will fight him after that, because guess what? Virgil Ortiz has a very shrewd manager in Rick Morrigan, and maybe Virgil Ortiz goes and fights Bakram. Maybe Virgil Ortiz goes and fights, you know, Xander in a Puerto Rico versus Mexico fight. Like, there's still ways people can avoid Jaron Ennis 154. So I'm just saying, you got someone that's ready, willing, and able, a fellow young, undefeated American champion with a lot of charisma and a lot of knockout power. The fight makes sense. Why not go ahead and try to revisit those negotiations? And, you know, look, if Brian Norman turns it down and they really are pump faking, then, you know, then you have every right to then move up and carry on with your career. But that's where I'm at. I just want to see the fight. Like, I've been getting a lot of comments from people saying that, you know, oh, BT, you switch up on Boots, you're a Boots hater, and that's not true at all. In fact, I like Jaron Ennis so much that I tell the truth about Jaron Ennis. And a lot of you guys don't like that. All I'm doing is holding him accountable for what he said he wanted to do. You guys ask reporters to hold fighters accountable, and then when fighters start doing that, or when reporters start doing it to your favorite fighters, now you don't like it, and now it's like, oh, you switched up, and it's like there's no switching up. Like, I'm not on nobody's team as far as fighters, unless you're Angelo Leo. I'm not on nobody's team in boxing. So, that's just what it is. Like, I just want to see the best fights. I'm just like you guys. I just want to see the best fights. But the only difference between me and you guys is that a lot of you guys don't have discernment. A lot of you guys can't see things before they happen. A lot of you guys don't know how to judge. A lot of you guys don't know how to look at a weight class and see what's gonna happen 4, 5, 6, 7 steps from now. I can. Look at this fight right here. Brian Norman versus Jin Sasaki. When everybody was talking about Boots versus Brian and negotiations, and you had Senior going on every channel in the world and all these guys going on different channels arguing, I was telling y'all this fight's gonna happen. And I even told you guys the time frame of when it was gonna happen. I told you in September of last year. Told you in September of 2024 that Norman and Suzaki were gonna fight between June and August of 2025. They get fought in June, so I was right. So a lot of y'all don't have that discernment, and that's just it. That's just what it is. And that's not being cocky. That's just telling y'all the honest to God truth. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure we got a lot of interesting comments. Shout out to everybody here. My bad. I went on a tangent there, but shout out to everybody here. It's your boy BTV Untouchable, True School Sports Empire. Let me see. We got a lot here. We got a whole lot to let me see. I sound like a hater. Well, you know, whenever you start talking the truth about fighters and you're a fan of those fighters, I'm always gonna be a hater. You know, people like boxers more than boxing. That's the truth. All these fighters are busy because they're ducking. The fighters 154 are busy because Jaron Ennis he just announced he's going 154. Josh Kelly is fighting Bakram. Oh, he's fighting Bakram? Okay. So then if Josh Kelly's fighting Bakram, then Boots is gonna fight Kalmi Agjarko. If he's fighting Bakram, I'm gonna say Boots fights Kalmi Agjarko. He's gonna fight a matchroom guy. Kalmi Agjarko, Madrimov, who else is matchroom having the top 15? Like, anybody who's in the top 15 that's a matchroom boxing fighter, that's who I think Jaron Ennis winds up fighting. You know, that's my prediction. I don't think it's gonna be no big name. Let me see. Boots is taking the easy way out by going the WBA route on 54. Yeah, honestly, I think at some point he winds up fighting Yoenis Telis. I think that's the route he's gonna go. I can see it. because basically that Boots won the WBA belt and he won the IBF belt, so that's going to give him standing to get a title shot faster with those sanctioning bodies. So it would not shock me if he gets a Ioannis Telly's fight in the next year or so. Deuce09 says, man, Boots said he wanted all the belts. Now he's saying he should have moved up 1 to 2 years ago. They're all over the place. They are all over the place, and the stories are not matching up. Because I'll tell you this, 1 to 2 years ago, I was saying he should have moved up to 154. I looked at the 147. Norman hadn't proven himself yet. Crawford and Spence were gone and weren't going to fight him. So I was like, yo, move up to 54 right now. And everyone kept telling me, no, 47, 47, 47. But then the problem is, he hung around in the whole division long enough for a guy to emerge and become somebody that people want to see him fight, and that guy is Brian Norman Jr. So, stand on what you said. Skywalker Box Media, salute. Good to see you, Skywalker. Good to see everybody in the chat. Got an active chat here going on. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, super chat. Talker says that the guy that Tellez is fighting is a solid fighter, but he will have nothing with Tellez. He was Raw versus Jack Colque, which is his only L. Okay, so thank you for that. I didn't know much about him, so thank you for that. The problem is Eddie Hearn is the biggest liar in the sport. You can't trust anything he says. You're not wrong. Like, Eddie Hearn is a promoter, and he's gonna do what promoters do, which is lie and which is manipulate and control narratives. But that's who Jaron Ennis has as his promoter. So Jaron Ennis willingly signed with Eddie Hearn. If that's who your promoter is, he's your representative. So anything he says, whether it's fair or not, can and will be used against you. The same thing goes for Norman. The same thing goes with Bob Arum. The same thing goes for anybody with PBC. Anything your promoter says can and will be used against you. That's why it's important to be on one accord with your manager and your promoter so that you don't look like an idiot and you guys can do what you want to do. Suzaki versus Norman was being talked about in August last year when he got upgraded. People who talk to people know we spoke about the fight ages ago as well. Correct. That's why talkers, me and you on one accord, on one accord. Like, we spoke about it on Twitter in the messages, and some of those conversations led to me making that video, the initial video in September. So. Those who know, and generally speaking in boxing, when a fight gets made, especially like a fight at the world championship level, it's normally discussed months in advance. Like, it's not like people just think like it's like, oh, two boxers see each other and it's like, oh, I want to fight you, you want to fight me, okay, we fight. Like, no, there's negotiations, there's term sheets, there's things that have to be ironed out, and that's a whole process. So if a fight gets announced in, let's say, this fight was in June, then odds are it was being worked on back in March, February, January, even sometimes. That's just the mechanics of the business and the sport of boxing. I agree. Jaron likes the Hearn BS train. I mean, Boots did say in an interview one time, he said that one thing he likes about being signed to Eddie Hearn is that Eddie Hearn talks a lot and that he don't got to really talk a whole lot himself. So again, that's your representative. If he's saying that you will revisit the Brian Norman negotiations after the Jin Sasaki fight, then that's basically he's saying that's what you want to do. But listen, anyway, I don't want to go too far off tangent here. A lot of you guys are asking me, like, what do I think is next for Jin Sasaki, right? And I want to talk about good old Jin, because truth be told, like, it's been a long time since I watched a fighter, get their ass beat like that. And, I really can't say nothing bad about him, because again, when you have two fighters, and I said this in my last video, and I'll repeat it here. Brian Norman Jr. is the youngest world champion in boxing. He's 24 years old, right? Jin Sasaki is 23 years old. So you had the youngest champion in boxing fighting a guy that, if he would have lost to him, would have replaced him as the youngest world champion in boxing. So you had two fighters, dangerous fighters, hard punching fighters, dynamic fighters, stepping up to the plate to make an explosive matchup happen. I can't get mad at fighters who step up to the plate and make dangerous fights happen in their careers, even if they get exposed, right? So he did get exposed at the world level. But I still, honestly, when I look at this current division, like this welterweight division, guys, is not the welterweight division of, Crawford, Spence, Thurman, Porter, them guys, Brook. It's not that deep of a division. When I look at this division, truth be told, I think Jin Sasaki's still one of the best guys in the division. Um, he does need to like change some things. He does need to adapt his style, but there's a lot of guys with names in this division that I think he has a great chance of beating. And let's look at it. Look, right. This is the current landscape of the welterweight division, right? Jin Sasaki is one of the top contenders. He was ranked number 2 by the WBO, right? So it's not a lot of names here, Let's look at Jin Sasaki against the other champions, right? So Jaron Ennis is in the division. Jin Sasaki versus Barrios. I think Jin Sasaki could absolutely sleep Mario Barrios. Mario Barrios, you watch him fight, he throws a good output of punches, has a good work rate, but he crosses his feet. If you watch him, he crosses his feet when he moves. He has leaky defense, and he's been stopped before. So I think Jin Sasaki would have a chance against Mario Barrios. I don't think that's crazy to say. Rolly Romero, another guy, who I think just like Jin is very flawed. I think Jin will have a chance against Rolly. Lewis Crocker is going to fight Patty Donovan in an eliminator. I think Jin Sasaki will have a chance against the winner of that fight. So when you look at the weight class, he still is one of the more dangerous fighters in it. And I'll take it a step further. I'm going to take it a step further because I really believe this. And if you go back and you watch my video when I was talking about Ring Magazine putting the belt on the line for Ennis versus Stanionis, I told you guys, I said, look, I personally think that at welterweight, I think Jin Sasaki could be Stanionis. Truth be told, like people like to make Stanionis out to be this killer, and he's a good fighter, but I would even give him a chance against Stanionis. Like I think that win for Brian Norman Jr. has a chance to age very, very well because the reality is that Jin Sasaki, for as reckless as he is, he really is punching like that. I don't care if you fight 23 tomato cans. If you fight 22 tomato cans, right, and you knock out 17 of them, that means you can punch. And the reason why I would give Jin a chance against Stanionis, I mean, I think Stanionis is the more well-schooled fighter. I think Stanionis probably might be the more physically strong guy in terms of physical strength. But Stanionis has leaky defense in his own right. Stanionis, when he fought Jaron Ennis and Jaron Ennis started styling on him, he was looking for a way out. I'm not going to say he quit because his trainer did that for him. Like Marvin Zamudio called the fight off because it was going to get worse. But Stanionis was looking for, I think if the fight would have went around 2 rounds, 3 rounds more, I think he would have looked for a way out. And I think he might have quit in the fight. But Marvin Zamudio did it before he did it for him before he did. I don't think there's any quit in Jin Sasaki, and I think he's the harder puncher. I think that he's actually the more athletic fighter in that fight. So I would actually pick Jin Sasaki to beat Imanta Stanionis if they fought. And I truthfully think that he's a tougher opponent for anybody at welterweight than Stanionis is. That's probably going to be an unpopular opinion because I know Stanionis has fought more names. He had a better amateur background, but this is the professional game. And I think Jin Sasaki in the professional ranks is the more dangerous fighter. But that's just me. I still think he could make some noise in the division. And right now, the division is very thin. There's guys coming up in the rankings, but nobody's really emerged yet. So I do think, just so long as he makes some tweaks to his style and takes the proper time to recover, Jin is going to get a much more winnable fight in a world title fight. I do think he will get a world title shot again. I do think it will be against somebody more beatable than Brian Norman Jr., who's punching holes through everyone right now. And when that time comes, it's not crazy for me to think that Jin Sasaki can still fulfill his dream of being the first ever Japanese welterweight champion in boxing. Now, again, I want to really drive this point home and reiterate this. He needs to really tweak his style. He needs to make it a point because I know he comes to I know he goes to Salah's gym for sparring, but he needs to really start basing himself out in the U.S. Japan does not have a truckload or a big assembly line of welterweight experience. And he needs to come to the States because the States is where he's going to get the best welterweight work. The States is where he's going to get the best coaching. Again, it's not out of hate. It's not to shame anybody, but it's just the truth. Jin Sasaki got as far as he could get with his style, and it got him hurt badly. And by the grace of God, God protected him, and God has spared him, because, you know, guys who get knocked out like that normally have worse outcomes. He's still in good health. He's still got his faculties. But I think, you know, Hachiochi Nakaya Boxing Gym, they need to look at, you know, adding someone to take the lead as part of the team, because at that top level of world championship boxing, you need to be a more sophisticated, complete fighter. And, you know, he's got balls down to his ankles. He's got punching power for days. But that in itself is not going to get you a world title. You need a jab. You need defense. You need to have a boxing IQ and strategy. And he just did not have any of that when he fought Brian Norman Jr. So because of his durability, not durability, but because of his willingness, his punching power, and his never quit attitude, I think that'll always make him a tough out for anybody in the division. But against a guy like Brian Norman Jr., it just wasn't. It wasn't going to work, because Brian Norman Jr. was too strong, too sophisticated for him, and it showed on the night. You know, but again, I have to reiterate, like, his punching power really is like that, because it was dangerous enough for Brian Norman to play the role of counterpuncher, which he really never has been in the fights that we've seen in his career, the notable ones. So, you know, there you go. Suzaki needs fundamentals drilled in. He doesn't have to loop every single right hand. He needs a jab and a sharper ability to close the pocket. I agree. No, I agree with all that. I agree that he needs to do all that, because there's not really any power behind his jab. He doesn't really step in with it. It's more of a pawing jab. He lives off of wide, looping, clubbing shots. But look, he has enough attributes where I feel like if properly harnessed and developed, he can actually win a world. I still think in this thin welterweight division, he can win a world title. He's an above average athlete. He's an elite puncher, and there's things that he can build off of. But you're not going to land those shots against guys with higher IQ if you don't have a game plan, and if you don't know how to set those punches up at that world class level. So there's a lot of work to be done. His chin may be suspect, but his form does leave him unbalanced whenever he's throwing. So I'll give those knockdowns on the first round to that, and not his. Yeah, that is true, because they weren't. He was lunging in already. He was already off balance, so that makes sense. To be fair, Jin didn't fight anyone in the rankings to be ranked so high. I reckon Rocha would beat Jin. That's a good fight, and I interviewed Alexis Rocha last year, back in early 2024. And I asked him about that fight, and he actually said that that's a fight that he'd be very interested in. So I like that fight. You know, I thought Rocha showed the ability to box in the Alexis Rocha fight. But you know, like the thing with Rocha is, Rocha doesn't have the power that Jin has, and Rocha isn't the athlete that Jin is, but Rocha is consistent and he's busy, so he could outwork Jin, maybe break him down in the later rounds. I like that fight. That could be one for the future. TSM wants to know, who do you want Jin to work on? Who do you want Jin to work with, and who do you want him to fight BT? And do you think Jin will actually come to America to work? It's a good question. So now I'm gonna throw this out there. I would love, in a perfect world, I would love to see Jim come to the States, come to Las Vegas, and come join Team Leo. Come train with Miguel. I would love that, actually. I think Miguel is a great trainer, and Miguel will get Jim right. I know that for a fact. And like, Nakaya Jim knows Miguel because we were in the gym, so it's not like we're unfamiliar. I feel like that'd be great. Get around world champion like Angelo and tighten some things up. I'm throwing it out there. I'd love to see that. As far as who I would want to see him fight, I mean, let me see. Let me go to the rankings. As far as who I'd like to see him fight, I would like to see Jin Sasaki fight. Maybe, like, if it's a guy in the rankings, I mean, his first fight back, probably just give him somebody in Japan, like just a guy that he could beat up on, just to get his confidence back, and maybe work on some things. But after that, you know, once he steps back into that top 15, you can do like maybe Jin versus, I'll say maybe like Harlem Eubank. I think he could beat Harlem Eubank. If not Harlem Eubank, maybe Lewis Crocker or Patty Donovan. I think he could beat Lewis Crocker and Patty Donovan. I've seen those guys fight. They're not anything to go crazy or worry about. Truth be told, I don't believe Suzaki is good. I think Keith Thurman beats Jin. Possibly, yeah. Keith Thurman's a way smarter fighter than Jin. That's possible. But Keith Thurman's 154, so I don't know. I don't know why. It's not really a possibility. Suzaki versus Jin. Suzaki versus Stanianos will be a banger fight. It is. It would be, and I really believe if they were to fight, I would give Jin a great chance at beating Stanianos. I think Stanianos has leaky defense, and the punches Brian Norman was able to avoid, I don't think Stanianos will be able to avoid them. Next Gen Combat says, I was just arguing with somebody, and they said, who has Jin fought? And I'm like, who has anybody at welterweight fought right now? That's true. Like, right now, guys, the division is in a transitional period. So if you're looking for those premier names like Crawford and Spence and Brook and Garcia and Thurman, you're not going to find those kind of names. You're just not. Those guys have aged out, or they moved up, or in some cases they've retired, and we're in a new era. I feel like Boots Stanianos and Norman Suzaki, this is the turn. This is the first turning of the page into the new era. So nobody's really fought anybody. So right now, guys trying to establish themselves. But of this current crop, and I know people don't want to hear it, and they're gonna think, yo, BT, you're being biased and this, that, and the third. I think Jin Sasaki is still one of the most dangerous guys at 147. You just gotta tighten some things up. It always seems like Boots and Eddie are not on the same page. They're not. They're not, and that's why you get Boots sometimes looking like, he looks like sometimes he says one thing, Eddie says another thing, and Boots looks bad because of it. So it's not a new thing. Jin needs to take an excursion, maybe with the Mexican trainer. I agree. You should ask maybe Jin if he would go to what Angelo and Miguel. I would like it's not that simple, because he has a chairman, and I don't want to disrespect the chairman, Nikaya. But I did message Jin on Instagram because he does follow me. I did message him, and I said, and I'll tell Nikaya this when I see him, like, any way that you guys need help, I want to see Jin, rebound from this, because I think he's got a lot of great things to give to the sport, and he's a good representative of boxing. So I want him to improve, because I see a lot of potential in him. The same way I'm sure you guys might have fighters you see that you think are really good, that you see potential in. But I think give it some time. I think that win, that loss for Jin will probably age very well. I think Brian Norman's going to knock a lot of guys out. It was reported that Jin was outweighed by 11 pounds on fight night. Jin has to build his physique. I agree. He's still frail for a welterweight, and I think that's going to be a big key to him, moving up and having success. But guys, let me go to the next talking point, because Brian Norman Jr., he set the whole boxing world on fire. He got two of the biggest names in boxing talking about him, and those two guys are the monster Inoue and Gervonta Davis. Let's talk about that, because that's how good this knockout was. I've been to a lot of fights. I've seen really big time knockouts. I think Norman versus Suzaki is in the top three. I think top three knockouts that I've ever seen in person are Norman Suzaki, Angelo Leo versus Fernando Lopez, and Deontay Wilder Bermane Stiverne rematch. Those are like the three best knockouts I've seen in person. So it's in really good company. But here's Tank. Gervonta Davis posted this on his Instagram story, and he said, and I quote, "Brian Norman is definitely the real deal. Atlanta don't even know. Y'all have a fire-ass world champ. Congratulations, family." So there you go. Tank is showing Brian Norman respect, because unbeknownst to a lot of people, Brian Norman Jr. has actually, when he was like 16, 17, like very young, he actually sparred a lot of rounds with Tank. And right here, he's gotten the respect of Gervonta Davis. And you guys know Tank. Tank's not one of those guys that's just going to like hand out respect or hand out compliments. If anything, Tank will be quicker to hand out disrespect. So if you got Tank's respect in the ring, in the gym, you did something right, and that actually is a credit to you as a fighter. So, you know, good stuff, like really good stuff there. And I hope, to his point about Atlanta not knowing about how good of a champion they have, it's my hope that Top Rank will allow Brian Norman Jr. to fight in Atlanta and build himself, because, you know, I feel like Atlanta is a untapped boxing market. They call Atlanta the Black Hollywood of America because they have one of the highest Black populations in the States. And, you know, Brian Norman, obviously, he's Black, like he's a Black American fighter. So I would like to see Brian Norman get a chance to really build his fan base in Atlanta, and for boxing to tap into one of the biggest major markets in America, which is Atlanta. So, you know, I think there's a unique opportunity for Top Rank and Brian Norman Jr. to become a star in boxing. And yeah, when you're getting the respect of guys like Gervonta Davis, you know, who doesn't just hand out respect to anybody, you know, you've done something right in that boxing ring. Then you had Naoya Inoue, the monster, you know, the golden boy of Japanese boxing, one of the faces of boxing. Here's what he said about Brian Norman and the fight with Jin Sasaki. He stated the following, and I quote, "The gap with Norman was something I knew before it even started. Yet there was something about Jin Sasaki that made me hold on to a silver lining of hope. It was a shocking night facing Norman's impenetrable wall in the welterweight division, which didn't even allow me to have the faint hope that Suzaki would win." So there you go. Inoue is telling you guys that he knew that there was a gap in class between Suzaki and Norman. Even though he liked Suzaki, he knew that it was a skill gap, and it was probably a physicality gap. And guess what, guys? I'm gonna put y'all on game, because a lot of y'all who talk about boxing, and a lot of the media channels that talk about boxing, y'all not in the gyms. You guys really aren't boots on the ground. You guys are not really in the field. I went to Ohashi Gym like 3 times to go see Brian Norman Jr. And 2 of those times I went at nighttime to go you know, interview him and watch him train. The second night I went there, Naoya Inoue was in the gym. I walked right past Inoue. He was on a mat doing some sit-ups. I didn't talk to him because I didn't want to make a scene. And you know the history, guys. If you follow the channel, you guys know the history. I don't gotta explain it to you or rehash my history with Ohashi Gym. But you know, he was there watching him train. He got to see him train more than I did, even, you know, so he knew the kind of fighter Brian Norman Jr. was. And it's clear, judging by the tweets, that he respected him. So here you guys have Brian Norman Jr. from Atlanta, Georgia, getting the respect of 2 of the biggest names in boxing, in Tank and Naoya Inoue. So a lot of people were asking me, a lot of people were telling me who don't like Brian Norman, or who are like mad that he didn't fight Boots. A lot of them were saying that, you know, Jin Sasaki is a can and he's a bum. So how could Brian Norman Jr.'s stock rise for beating such an inferior opponent, right? Well, look who's talking about him. Look who's giving him his flowers on social media. Big names, the top guys in the sports, the ticket sellers. So if that's not evidence that his stock raised, I don't know what is. I honestly don't know what is. So that's what it is. But anyway, let me go to the comments again, because I see you guys chiming in. Who would I suggest for Jin Sasaki as a trainer? I already said earlier in the live. I said, look, man, in a perfect world, I would love to see Jin, you know, come to America, to Vegas specifically, and come. You know, I'm not saying he should ditch his team. I want to make it very clear. I'm not saying he should get rid of the Nakayas. They got him to this level, and I know with the Japanese boxing system, it's not like that, guys. It's not like America. You can't just up and leave your trainer. There's contracts and there's agreements with the gyms, and it is frowned upon to just switch. Like, it's not like America. But I would like to see him come to the States. You know, I'd love to see him work with Miguel and be around Angelo. I think we'd get Jin right, honestly. But that's just my opinion. But apart from that, I mean, you got plenty of great trainers. You got guys like Rudy Hernandez, who's worked with Japanese fighters. You got our boy Kai Zema over there. He's a Japanese fighter. He's my boy Kai over there. He'll get Jin right. He'll get Jin right.
On that defense.
He'll get Jin right. You know, he's a Japanese fighter. He speaks Japanese, and for those of you who don't know, Kai, he trains people in LA at Justin Fortune Gym. He's like the only English
in the LA boxing gym.
In LA boxing gym. He's the only English speaking Japanese boxing trainer in the States. So I feel like that could be a good fit. There's guys out there that are willing to help Jin Sasaki. It's just more so like, will the gym and just will he be willing to take the help? So that's my answer to your question, champ. Let me see. So basically, he can't leave. For the way Japanese boxing has been explained to me is it's not very easy to just up and leave. Like there's contracts and there's it's frowned upon to just leave your gym. It's not as easy as you guys would think. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I would believe it to be a difficult assignment if you wanted to leave.
It's hard. It's hard to leave when those guys raised him from zero as well.
Correct.
So,
yeah,
not that easy.
They were training him at 12, right?
Yeah. He grew up with them, and they made him the fighter that he is, and they got him to a world title level. So it's not easy to just up and leave,
Well, yeah. Well, and the thing is, people still have feelings, right? Like they're gonna feel some type of way about him, pretty much saying like, "Hey, like I've gone as far as
family, so
I've gone as far as I can go." Like, okay, but now you're not good enough. I have to go somewhere to be better. So they may not take kindly to that, and that's how it is a lot of times in boxing, not just in Japan, but anywhere. People are prideful. People want to be the ones that say, "Hey, I got you to the world title." So that's what it is. Jin versus Blair Cobbs. Ooh, that'd be a fight. That'd be they both are reckless. They both can get clipped. I like that fight. I like that fight. I know like Blair's about a 5-round fighter. He normally starts off real good and then he tends to fade. I like that fight a lot. I would like them to line that up. And funny enough, guys, Blair's manager, who I know, this guy named Elliot, the guy that manages Chris Eubank, the big black bodybuilder guy that got into it with Billy Joe Saunders. He actually messaged me recently about setting up an interview with Blair Cobbs. So maybe when I interview Blair, that'll be a question for Blair. What does he think about that fight?
It's a good character. I think it'll be
two great characters. Yeah. Two great characters, two punchers, two guys who are vulnerable, good TV like action fighters.
It's a good fight.
I like that fight. Let me see. Okay, so last talking point, guys, and this will answer the question that a lot of you guys asked me in the chat, which is, who is he going to fight next, and can Brian Norman Jr. become a legitimate boxing star in America? Because I know, I know the dad and Norman, the senior and junior, they both are coming from the standpoint of like, we want to fight around the world. We don't want to just pigeonhole ourselves into our hometown like the other fighters. We'll fight. We'll come back to Japan to fight Hiroka. We'll go to the UK for Ben. We want to be a world champion and be in different markets. They have a different mentality when it comes to fighting. So I know they're not really too concerned about where the hell they fight as long as they get paid well. But I think it's a legitimate question to ask because, you guys tell me who is the last fighter in the USA who could punch like Brian Norman Jr. and then had like his charisma. It's been a little bit of time, because most of the punchers, like I said earlier, most of the punchers don't have that kind of personality, and then the guys that have personalities can't really punch, and aren't world level fighters. So I think there's a unique opportunity here for Brian Norman to, become a star in the States, and I think part of becoming a star in the States is he has to build up his fan base in where he's from, in Atlanta, or and if not Atlanta, one of the big boxing markets like Vegas and or New York City. Who will he fight next? A lot of you guys ask me, who do I think Brian Norman will fight next? Now, we know he's not going to fight Jaron Ennis because Jaron Ennis does, he wants to go to 54. He says he said he's weight drained. When you look at the WBO rankings, right? You have Alexis Rocha number 1. Now, will Golden Boy let Rocha fight Norman? I don't think so. They have the Carrillo rematch they want to do, which I think is a good fight, and I thought Rocha actually edged that fight, and it's a big fight for his career. So take him off the table. He's not gonna fight Rocha, right? Number 2 is Suzaki. He just knocked him out. 3 is David Papot from France, who I've been seeing his name in the rankings for a long time. I know Rick Laser. Shout out to Rick. I know Rick Laser has helped him like get some deals for fights in France and whatever. But he's an option. And the number, I think Norman will fight either 4 or 5. I think he'll either fight Karen Chukujan, who, you know, Jaron Ennis fought twice and didn't look so great against, but he won. But the guy I think he's the number one option, the number one guy I think he's in the fight is the number 5 contender. This guy right here from the UK, Ekal Essuman. I think he will fight Ekal Essuman in a voluntary defense. And I don't think that's a terrible fight. I mean, Ekal Essuman is a, you know, fringe contender. He just beat Josh Taylor in an upset victory. He outboxed Josh Taylor, and that's how he got that high in the rankings. You know, he's beat some guys, good, decent fighters at the British domestic level, guys like Chris Congo and people like that. So he's not a bad fighter, but, you know, he's not a top world level fighter. So I think his next fight is going to wind up being another voluntary because none of the champions are going to fight him. And I think it'll be this guy right here, Ekal Essuman from Nottingham, UK. You know, good technical fighter, not a lot of power, but, you know, just does the basics really well. Solid pro. You know, experienced fighter, has boxed 175 rounds in the pros. Not a can by any means. But you know, Ekal Essuman's 36 years old, so he's looking for a big fight. He's looking for a payday. He's looking for a world title fight. And I think that world title fight for him comes in the form of Brian Norman Jr. So if that does come to fruition, good luck to him, because Brian Norman Jr. is really punching like that. And that fight might be an interesting fight, guys, because when you really look at Brian Norman's last 3 opponents, they're all two of them are punchers. So Jin Sasaki, Derek Cuevas, those guys are left hook dominant, you know, punchers, guys that look for that punch. Giovanni Santillan is a volume puncher, a swarmer, if you will. Essuman, I think, will be an interesting fight, at least from a style standpoint, because he's a boxer. He's just a pure boxer. He's not going to look for a knockout. He's going to box behind the jab. So I would like to see how Norman does against a boxer, because the last time Brian Norman fought a boxer was against Quentin Randall. That was, I think, might have been his first fight on ESPN when he signed with Top Rank, you know, on the Shakur Stevenson, De Los Santos undercard. And when he fought Quentin Randall, he didn't look good at all in that fight. He had some things that he was having a problem working out. And, you know, while I'm talking about him, shout out to Quentin Randall. Like, how good has his performance aged? You know, people said it was a boring fight. It was this, it was that. He put up a good, like, solid gatekeeper, you know, performance, crafty performance against Norman, where he didn't get knocked out and the fight was competitive. It was somewhat competitive. And since that fight, really and truthfully, everybody's been getting sent to the gulag, sent to the shadow realm against Brian Norman Jr. So, you know, I think from that standpoint, it'd be very interesting to see Brian Norman Jr. against a good, solid, highly ranked, technical boxer like Ekal Essuman, because ever since since Quentin Randall, he's been fighting nothing but punchers and swarmers and guys that are going to allow him to open up and just really knock him out. So that's why I think he'll fight next. And I think if he's ever going to get a homecoming fight, that's the fight it should be. You're fighting a guy who's not necessarily a big name, but a guy that you know, isn't going to have your same level of punching power, who you're going to have a chance to knock out and entertain the home crowd. So if they're going to do the fight in Atlanta, go ahead and do that one, you know? And I do think, honestly, guys, I do think Brian Norman can become a star in America. I do. I really do. Because one thing about boxing is that people love to see knockouts. People who don't even like boxing, they may not appreciate the Richardson Hitchens and the Devin Hades and Shakur Stevensons, but you put some Brian Norman Jr. on and they see this guy, this country strong welterweight champion, knocking everybody out, sending them to the shadow realm, and he has like cool celebrations when he knocks people out. He's got personality. I really feel like he does got potential to be a star. So I'm not writing him off. I think he could really be something as far as a star, and even potentially a ticket seller. So yeah. Joe Proctor says Michael McKinson would be a good option. He was on Twitter asking help from Rick Glazer. You know, McKinson, shout out to McKinson. You know, I'm the president of the American Michael McKinson fan club. You know, I got a lot of respect for him because he's an extremely pillow-fisted fighter from the UK, but very technical fighter, tough as nails, physically strong, not afraid of nothing. Fought Virgil Ortiz. Probably one of the, even though he's inactive and he's not ranked, I would venture to say, in my opinion, Michael McKinson is, in this current crop of welterweights, a top 10 welterweight, but he's not active, so he's not ranked. That wouldn't be a bad fight. it would allow Norman to fight a guy who he could look good against, probably knock out, but a guy that's competent, a guy that is a world level fighter. Yeah, I ain't mad at that. So so Rashidi Ellis, right? Rashidi Ellis's name has been resurfacing, and I wanted to speak about Rashidi Ellis real quickly. So this guy on Twitter right here, Gritty from the Underground, he says Brian Norman versus Rashidi Ellis in Atlanta. That fight might actually make more sense in Atlanta because Atlanta's, like I said, high Black American population, right? Two black fighters fighting each other, so it makes sense. Ellis lost last time. Most of us saw Ellis. He lost to Roman Villa. Since that fight, let's go to Box Rec. Since that fight, Rashidi Ellis, I know he's been fighting. And winning, but it's been like small fights over there in Massachusetts, where he's from. But he's back in the rankings. Like, he's ranked, so Norman could pick him. He could be an actual fight. And guys, I'm old enough to remember a time where that's Rashida, not Rashidi. But I'm old enough to remember a time where Rashidi Ellis was looked at to be a future world champion, and he was, a guy that, sat on the shelf for a while. Fighters avoided him. Golden Boy didn't really want to invest in him like they probably should have. But Ellis, he has speed, he has power. He's incredibly experienced. He's been in camps with Canelo and stuff like that. He has a win over Alexis Rocha. He's actually fighting today. Coincidentally, he's fighting today in Lowell, Massachusetts. Shout out to the fine folks in Lowell, Massachusetts. I got family over there. Lowell, Massachusetts, the home of Mickey Ward. But he's fighting today in Lowell against Josek Ruiz, and it'll actually be his since October. It'll be his third fight since October. So he's fighting. He's staying active. He's staying busy, and good for him. I wouldn't mind if Norman can't get a champion or a big fight. I think Rashidi Ellis is a good, credible name, and I wouldn't mind seeing Rashidi Ellis get his fight, step up to the plate, and do his thing and try to become a welterweight champion. Why not? Ellis gonna go in there and do his best and put up a fight. So there's that. So guys, I pretty much ran through all my talking points. So look, we got it's 10:44. We're an hour 8 minutes in. Kyle, do we have to go soon to the gym?
Yeah, pretty soon.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so guys, I'm gonna stay live for 15 more minutes, and I'll get up off here because me and my buddy Kyle, we have to go to the gym to go see a fighter.
Actually, we got time.
We got time?
We're gonna meet them. We're gonna meet them at 1.
Oh, we got time. Okay, so we'll go at least 30 more minutes, guys. And if things really heat up, if you guys start, you guys keep giving me great comments and I just keep talking, then we'll extend it because we got time to kill. All right, so I see you guys talking about Devin Haney. Okay, can you put the AC on? Oh yeah, the remote's there, and then the blue button in the middle. Yeah. So a lot of you guys are mentioning Devin Haney against Brian Norman Jr. because he's been shooting his mouth off about Brian Norman. You know what? Let's go to screen share again. Let's go to Devin Haney. Let's go to Devin Haney's account and let's go see what he's been saying because I want to talk about this. I forgot to mention this about Devin Haney. Devin Haney's at welterweight now, and he was saying leading into the fight that he thinks Brian Norman is ass. He's not that good. And then when he saw that knockout, he changed his tune. He said, "Damn, maybe Brian Norman ain't so ass after all." So that's when I read that. So when I read his initial tweet of Brian Norman is ass, I read it in my head as Brian Norman is easy work. I'm gonna fight him and get an easy title. That's what I read. That's how I interpreted his tweet in my head. When he says, "Damn, maybe Brian ain't so ass," now I interpret it as, "I'm not gonna fight you. You punch too damn hard." So yeah, and honestly, look, Devin Haney don't want those problems. I know Devin Haney can box. He can box. He can move. But guess what? Brian Norman can box too, and Brian Norman can counter punch, and Brian Norman can move. And guess what? Brian Norman is the bigger puncher. Brian Norman is really, really punching like that. And when you talk about Devin Haney, getting beat up by Ryan Garcia the way he did, he's gonna get PTSD getting punched out by Brian Norman Jr. So I don't think he should go visit that. Bill Haney, we know that he does a lot more talking than Devin, and I love Bill. Shout out to OG Bill Haney. I know that he subscribed to my channel. I don't know if he still is, but shout out to him. He's always been good to me when I've seen him, and I do respect what he's done as a manager, because Bill Haney is a great boxing manager. Don't get it twisted. But here's what Bill Haney said. He said, I quote, because he was responding to Dan Raphael's criticisms of Virgil Ortiz or Boots, right? About Boots avoiding the Virgil Ortiz fight. So he said, look, Bill Haney said, Boots' biggest bag was Devin Haney at 147. The fight was on the table for Boots. I respect this move to 154, but let's be real. Teofimo Lopez and Brian Norman Jr. don't bring enough to the table for Devin Haney. So he's pretty much saying that the risk ain't worth the reward. And Carl Moretti, the president, one of the top guys at Top Rank, he takes he posts a picture of Jin Sasaki laid down flat with Brian Norman standing over him, and he tweets Bill Haney and he says, I get it. Brian Norman puts opponents to sleep in a different way. So he's pretty much saying, look, we get it. You saw what happened. You know what's up. You're going to go a different direction. Fair play to you. So I don't think they should fight. I don't think Haney should even think about that fight, because he'll have PTSD. If Jin could take that left hook from Ryan is going to be in hell. Ooh, that'd be a crazy fight. That'd be a crazy fight. Because look, Ryan, especially after that, True School is the president of the Brian Norman Jr. fan club now because he knocked out overrated Jin Sasaki. I've been liking Brian Norman Jr. I don't know what he's talking about. I've been ever since at least September. I've been talking about Brian Norman Jr. But guess what? Believe it or not, I'm actually still a big Jaron Ennis fan, and I'm a big Brian Norman fan, and I'm a big Jin Sasaki fan, and I'm a big fan of Giovanni Santillan, and I'm a big fan of Rashidi Ellis. Because guess what, guys? I'm a big fan of the sport of boxing. So if I'm sitting here and I'm wasting if I'm sitting here and I'm spending my valuable time talking about these guys every day, I gotta be some sort of fan of them. So, but why not? You know what? If there's a fighter from the USA that's not named Angelo Leo that you could accuse me of being the president of the fan club of, why not? Brian Norman Jr. Why not? He gets knockouts. He gets knockouts. He talks. He had a lot of charisma. What's not to like? You were selling whoop tickets on Suzaki. I didn't sell no whoop tickets. I told you what he was. I told you he was a big time puncher with vulnerabilities who's dangerous, and he was dangerous enough to where Brian Norman Jr. had to be a counter puncher, something he's never been at all at this level in his career. So I wasn't selling no whoop tickets. I knew what he was. I told you what the fight was going to be. I picked Brian Norman Jr. by 7th round stoppage. I was 2 rounds off. And guess what? I think Jin Sasaki is still one of the best fighters in this very thin welterweight division. I think he's one of the best fighters in it, and I think the win will age well for Brian Norman Jr., and I think the loss will age well for Jin Sasaki, and I'm going to stand on that. And you can feel free to clip this if you want to, and you can feel free to hold me accountable for this in the future if you want to, but that's where I'm at. Who the hell has Jin beat? Jin beat Keito Obara, who was a former world title challenger. He didn't really beat anybody at the world level, but guess what? Who the fuck has anybody beat at welterweight? Who has anybody beat as a welterweight? The division is in a state of transition. So guess what? Brian Norman, I mean, according to you guys, Brian Norman hasn't beat anybody. Jin hasn't beat anybody. Jaron Ennis, I mean, by your guys' logic, he hasn't beat anybody. Karen hasn't beat anybody. Barrios beat Ugas. So by your guys' logic, Mario Barrios is the best welterweight in the division because he beat Yordenis Ugas, who was a former champion. If we're gonna use your guys' logic, Mario. If you guys are gonna say who did Jin beat, and you're gonna say Brian Norman beat a Can, okay, keep that same energy. If that's what you think, then that means Mario Barrios is the best fighter in the division because he beat Yordenis Ugas. Yordenis Ugas, who is a more accomplished fighter and a better fighter than everybody that Ennis or Brian Norman have defeated so far. So if you're gonna say who has Jin beat, just make sure you also say that Mario Barrios is the best fighter in the division. If we're gonna talk about resumes, because he has the best win. Now look, True School. This is the dumbass I was arguing about Jin in the welterweight. I'm not gonna argue that, buddy. The proof in the pudding. He has one of the highest knockout ratios in the division, and Brian Norman Jr. had to fight a completely different style to do what he did. Brian Norman didn't fight the same way he did against Santillan because he respected the punching power of Jin Sasaki. To be fair, Barrios has the biggest fight at welterweight. Yeah. So if Barrios beats Manny Pacquiao and he has a win against Ugas, are you guys gonna sit here and say he's number one? Because everybody says Barrios is the weakest and easiest champion in the division, but then you guys say Brian Norman didn't beat anybody with Suzaki. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're gonna say Brian Norman didn't beat nobody with Suzaki, if you're gonna call Jin Sasaki a can or a bum, whatever term you want to use, do whatever you want. But just make sure you say Mario Barrios is the best in the division. You have to stand on that. Now, shout out to Reverse Lee with the super chat. He says Ryan beat Haney with 1/4 of a camp. Why can't Norman? I agree. I think Norman could beat Haney. I don't think Bill Haney told you guys. Bill Haney told you guys. Bill Haney told you guys like what the deal was, that he's not gonna fight him because he feels that the risk ain't worth the reward. So they're gonna fight someone else. Darren Collins says this is insane. No. You know what's insane? What's insane is disgraceful boxing fans like you who disrespect fighters that actually step up to the plate and actually make real fights happen and actually go in there and fight. Like that's insane. You trying to have your cake and eat it too. And you, on one hand, you want to say a guy's a bum. But then the guy who everybody says is the weakest champion in the division, that guy has the best win. And you probably say Mario Barrios is a bum too. So you're probably this dude said Jin Sasaki is gonna get a belt. Yeah, it's not crazy to say. The division is very thin. You're gonna have Patty Donovan and Lewis Crocker fight for the belt. He could beat those guys. He could beat a guy like Rolly. He could beat a guy like Barrios. That's not crazy to say. That's now Brian Norman is different. Brian Norman is clearly the best guy in the division right now because since Boots is not in the division anymore, Brian Norman is clearly like, and it's not even a debate. He's the best guy in the division. But outside of that, the division is very thin. So that's not crazy to say. And you know what? What I've learned about this Jin fight, what I learned from this Jin fight with Brian and Brian as well, from Brian as well. This is why fighters don't take big fights. I can't get mad and I can't hate on fighters for not taking fights. Because guess what? A lot of the majority of boxing fans are really and truly like they're unappreciative because when a guy boxes a very negative fight, they say he's boring. We want a guy like Shakur Stevenson and or Richardson Hitchens or even Madrimov. We want these guys to fight in a more aggressive style and give us an entertaining fight, right? So it's not good enough when guys are pure boxers. Then you get a guy like Jin who doesn't know how to do that yet. And he may never know how to do that. He just balls to the wall. He don't care. He comes and he fights another explosive punch like Brian Norman Jr. And he tries to give you guys a fight. And he just not on that level. He gets outsmarted. He gets outclassed in every way, which is fine. But he steps up to the plate and makes the fight happen. And guess what? That guy almost got murdered in there. And it's still not good enough. You still say. So this is what I'm saying. Like, fighters got to do what's best for them because fans got a short memory. It's unfortunate, but like 90%, there's a 10% of real boxing fans that will give fighters credit for stepping up to the plate and making real fights happen. I'm not saying it's everybody, but the majority of boxing fans do not appreciate fighters that really make things happen because they can't win. When they're too negative, they say they're boring and they want an exciting fight. When they come to fight and they're a bit reckless, they say you should have boxed. So it's like you can't win. I guarantee you he doesn't do anything at 147. Did y'all even watch the fight? Watch the fight. I was in Japan. I was at the Ota City General Gymnasium. I was there in the I wish Boots Ennis to fight Brian. I wish Boots Ennis to fight Brian Norman Jr. All of a sudden, he waited to the day of the fight and he became a medical expert. All of a sudden, he's a medical expert. I never heard Jaron Ennis. Like he's a medical expert. Like and I like Boots, but it seems like it's not a coincidence to me. To me, it's not a coincidence. Like I'm not getting no joy out of like questioning this, but like he felt some type of way about Brian Norman. He waited to the week of his fight and the day of his fight to announce that he's moving up. So like, yeah, sure, Boots is more talented than way more talented than Jin Sasaki, but when it came time to step up to the plate to fight Virgil Ortiz, he didn't do that. When it came to step up to the plate to fight Brian Norman Jr., you know, he don't want to do that now. Sure, Brian Norman turned down the fight, but you know, negotiate again. If you really want that fight that bad, negotiate again. When they made the offer, Brian Norman had just become champion. And guess what? If Boots would have fought Brian Norman Jr. when you guys wanted him to fight Brian Norman Jr. and he would have smoked Brian Norman Jr., guess what? Boots wouldn't even get any credit. Let's be real. Like, would you guys give Boots more credit then or more credit now for beating Brian Norman Jr.? Because now Norman has had 2 devastating knockouts. He showed you guys skills. He showed you maturation. He's gotten better as a fighter. If he beats Brian Norman now, it's a better win now on his resume than it was back then when the offer was made. That's you can't lie and say, oh no. All right, so look, I wanna be very clear, and I want to say thank you for the super chat. I'm gonna disagree with your first part of your comment because I don't like to play in the prejudice or racist comments, but I'll read your super chat since you sent it. Samuel Jackson says, blacks are the most clueless casual boxing fans, and it's really been showing since NOAB Fulton. Thank you for covering not just American boxing. Now, I know there's dumb fans in every segment of the YouTube box community. There's dumb fans that like to cap for the black fighters. There's dumb fans that like to cap for the Eastern European fighters. Same thing for maybe even some of the Japanese. There's bad fans in all cultures. I'm not gonna just generalize.
Dumbasses everywhere.
There's dumbasses everywhere. Yeah. But as far as your last part of the comment, this is the home of boxing on YouTube for a reason, because we don't just talk about the fights that, like, I know, like right now, probably every channel on YouTube is talking about Canelo and Crawford in the press conference. Me, I'll get to it probably tomorrow or the next day. We're still talking about this fight because it was a fight that we talked about for a while, and it delivered as far as action. And both fighters deserve a lot of credit for being that young and stepping up to the plate. Guys, we just came from an era in boxing where Crawford and Spence had, for 5 years, the fight didn't happen. Some people say it was Crawford's fault for resigning on the top rank. Some people say that it was Spence's fault for PBC just put him in a witness protection program, right? Whatever side of the fence you fall on, it took them years to make the fight. Neither one of them stepped up to the plate and came to an agreement. So when you get guys at a young age, at an early stage of their career, where they could easily, like, guys, Jin could have fought easier fights. He didn't need to fight Brian Norman Jr. He got this fight because he called for it. He asked for it. He looked for the smoke. He called him out when I was here in Japan. He called him out in English when I interviewed him, when I talked to him after his fight on the Inoue undercard back in January. He came to Vegas, all right, and he called him out to his face in English as well. So that's a fighter that, yes, he's flawed. He's looking for the smoke. I can't get mad at fighters who actually are looking for real deal smoke. Can't do it. I'm sorry. It's not in me. It's not in me to disparage those kind of guys. Jin is talented, but he's a dumbass. I mean, he needs to really improve his skills. How many dudes get a title fight after fighting a guy with 14 losses? The guy who had 14 losses never fight outside of Japan, so stop the cap. Actually, you sure about that, Amizi? Are you sure you wanna start talking about Japanese boxing with me? Is that a route that you think you're prepared to go down? Because you're talking about Shoki Sakai, who had 14 losses. He was 29-15. You're saying that he never fought outside of Japan? Well, guess what? Not only are you wrong, in fact, let me go to screen share. So not only are you wrong, MEZBX, about Jin Sasaki's last opponent, where you said he had 14 losses and he never fought outside Japan. Not only are you wrong about Shoki Sakai turned pro in Mexico, and he's trained in Mexico. In fact, he had his first, like, what? How many Mexican flags do you see here? Unless I misread your comment and you're talking about Jin. And by the way, even if you're talking about Jin, you're still wrong, because Jin had a fight in Thailand. So if you're talking about Shoki Sakai, you're wrong, because Shoki Sakai fought all these times in Mexico, turned pro in Mexico, trained in Mexico, And Jin had a fight in Thailand, so you're wrong. Exposed. Respectfully, that doesn't mean he deserved the fight. I guarantee Nurmagomedov won't fight Ellis nor Karen. Both are on the top 10. I don't think he'll fight Karen. You know what? I think he'll fight Ellis, but I don't think he'll fight Karen. I think he'll fight Karen because I think he'll fight Ellis because Ellis is ranked now. Ellis is fighting today. Actually, he's fighting in Massachusetts today. So if he wins his fight, boom, you get Karen to go in there and not Karen, Ellis to go in there and fight Norman. That's a good fight. Ellis is a guy that's been at a high level. That's what I'm saying. Like, you guys come out here and you say, oh, this guy had 14 losses. Yo, them dudes with 14 losses, 10 losses, upside down records, those be the worst ones. Those are the worst guys to fight. If you knew anything about boxing, you know that them guys are durable. Them guys know how to really survive and fight and are crafty. Shoki Sakai fought in Mexico, had over 30 professional fights and never been stopped. So put some respect on Shoki Sakai's name. 2019 was the last time he didn't fight in Japan. Stop it. No. You didn't say since 2019. You said he's never fought outside of Japan. I told you. I showed you his opponent who turned pro outside of Japan. His Japanese opponent who turned pro outside of Japan, and then Jin has fought in Thailand, which is not Japan. It's close to Japan, but it's not Japan. Yeah, that's my only concern, Joe. Is will Jin be the same? That is something to consider. Like, we don't know if he'll be the same. He got knocked out bad. Did I see what happened to Jinjiro? Yeah, I saw it. I was there. I was. So, guys, I've been at both. I was there when Jinjiro got carried out of the ring when he fought Pedro Tajuron, and I was there when Jin got carried out the ring against Brian Norman Jr. So I've seen it. I know it's hard to come back from. It's very possible he might be super chinny, and guys who don't even have real power might start stopping him. That happens in boxing. I've considered that, but the welterweight division is not this guys. The welterweight division is not the featherweight division. It's not 154. It's not a loaded weight class. It's definitely a weight class where it's thin, and I think because it's so thin, he's gonna have his chance to fight for the world title again. And I think when he gets a chance again, it's gonna be against a more winnable opponent than Brian Norman Jr. That's what I believe, and I'm gonna stand on it. Whether or not he becomes champion, that's up to him. He's got to improve and get to where he needs to be, but skill-wise. But I think he'll get another shot because the division is that thin. Shoki Sakai is a tough fighter who really never had the comfort of choosing who he fights. Exactly. There's a lot of fighters like that in boxing too. I mean, in fact, hold on. That gentleman over there, my boy Kai, he was one of those guys, right, Kai? Like you turned pro in Japan. What was your record? How many fights?
My record was an impressive 6 wins and 7 losses.
So you had 13 professional fights.
Yes.
Were you one of those fighters who could choose who you fought?
No, sir.
How did it work? How does it work for people out there?
In Japan or in the States?
Both.
Both. I mean, Japan's a little different because you sign with a gym and they kind of manage and promote you. But most boxers, they don't know anything about the boxing business, so it's not in your hands like who you fight.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the States, if you have a few losses, you can't really choose who you fight.
Or if you're not a ticket seller, right? Like
you gotta sell a lot of tickets, or you gotta pay for fights and stuff. Otherwise, you're gonna go in as an opponent, and if you can beat one, then you gotta beat another one.
Never ends.
Beat another one, and maybe then a promoter will pick you up, and then you can get easier fights. But other than that, you're just getting fed to the dogs, and if you survive and win 3 or 4 fights in a row, then maybe. You go on a good path. Shoki Sakai, I give him a lot of respect because he had to go through all that and he survived and he got to where he is and fighting on really big fights. So now, but he had to go through hell to get there.
Correct. So, and I'm sure he's made decent money as an opponent. Because many times in boxing you can make more money being the opponent than you can even as a champion.
Yeah, but then most guys, most fighters. or like guys like me, guys that you guys never heard about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because we couldn't beat like 3, 4 A-side fighters to have a promoter pick us up. So it's a tough game out there.
It's a tough game. It's a tough game, and it's hard. It's hard. I wish people really could see the full scope of boxing. Like, I wish sometimes I wish I could record like some of the things that I see in boxing and like put it on YouTube so people can have like the understanding I have of like what it's just.
Everybody always sees like the guys you see on TV, the superstars.
Yeah, but there's plenty of guys like Shoki Sakai who maybe under different circumstances, if they had the money behind them, if they could actually build their careers properly, maybe they wouldn't be 29-15. Maybe they would have been champion. Look at guys like Glenn Johnson, the Road Warrior. He had a lot of losses. Fought Roy Jones, beat him. Fought Tarver, Clinton Woods, Carl Frost. I mean, and he beat some top names, but he had kind of a Shoki Sakai record. Yeah. Freddie Pendleton. Have you heard of Freddie Pendleton?
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah, he fought Pernell Whitaker, lost to him. He beat Roger Mayweather. He actually broke the record for the being a world champion with the most losses. Because when he won the world title, I think he had like 18 losses or something like that. Wow. Yeah. So he's one of those guys. So it's a tough game. Anyway, let me see. My man right here said, "You motherfuckers were selling wolf tickets on Suzaki. Got exposed. Don't get mad. I'm not mad. I'm just telling you that I think he's one of the better welterweights out there, and I think getting knocked the fuck up by Brian Norman Jr. isn't the worst thing in the world. That guy isn't. That guy's gonna knock out a lot of people. You know, he's only gonna get better and better and better. So I don't think it's a loss that'll age bad, and I don't think it's a win that'll age bad either for Brian Norman. So that's where I'm at. He's not on that level. He's not on the Brian Norman level. But if you're talking about guys like Barrios and Lewis Crocker and these kind of guys, I'm giving them a chance. Them guys are not creme de la creme, top shelf fighters. Brian Norman is the difference. It's the same division because nobody unifies. Joe Proctor. Yeah. Okay. Shout out to Joe. We're talking about welterweight's the same division because nobody unifies. I mean, I could argue that the welterweight is where it's at because guys unify. We had Crawford Spence. They had to fight. The belts got dropped. Crawford moved up, and now that's why we're in this transitional period. But I hear you. Edgar Allah says, "Hey BT, great coverage as usual of the Japanese boxing scene. What do you think of Luis Neri's fight deal?" I did a video on it recently. I think it's good for Neri. He's gonna get paid well. I've been talking about it for a little bit of time in my featherweight coverage that there's a lot of Japanese featherweights. Nobody's a champion, but there's a lot of guys ranked in the top 15 across all the sanctioning bodies. And you got Junto Nakatani, who's gonna be moving up to 122 soon. So I think they're going to use Neri as a gatekeeper for a lot of these guys like Nakatani, potentially Mikita Nakano, and the other guys as well. And I think it'll be good business for the Japanese fighters because Neri is a very recognized name in the Japanese boxing scene. He's fought Inoue, he's fought Yamanaka. So I think it makes sense for all the parties involved. Yeah, my thoughts is something like a dual trainer like thing. Like Junto works in Japan, but he's also has a trainer in America. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think for the Suzaki side of things, I think that would probably be the best arrangement for him. Get himself an American trainer. Am I comparing Shoki Sakai to Glenn Johnson? Hell no, I'm not comparing them. Glenn Johnson was a better fighter, And by the way, shout out to Glenn Johnson, one of South Florida's very own. I love Glenn Johnson, and I know Glenn Johnson, great guy. But it's an analogy. Like what I'm saying is that Glenn Johnson had a bunch of losses, and obviously he's a higher level than Shoki Sakai. But there's a lot of guys like Shoki Sakai that are very crafty, competent fighters. That maybe if they had more promotion or they had different circumstances, they maybe could have been a Glenn Johnson. It's possible, but that's just the game. That's how the game goes. No comparison to Glenn Johnson. Glenn Johnson is much better than Shoki Sakai. All I'm saying is that not every fighter gets to pick their fights. Jin was working at Salas before this fight with Norman. He was, but I don't think well, actually, let me say this. I won't get too deep into it because some things are not to be said on YouTube. But I just know that Salas doesn't have as much influence on Jin's style as he probably should, with him being in that gym so much. And that's not something that I think. That's something that I know from things I've heard. But I hope that he can get. I hope that like Nakaya can take a back seat so that Jin can improve, because I think he does have some great things to give to the welterweight division. Who are my top 5 welterweights right now? Great question. My top 5 welterweights right now, I'll say Brian Norman Jr. is number 1, because if Jaron Ennis is moving up, which he says he is, I'll take his word. Brian Norman 1. Brian Norman Jr. number 1. I'll go Mario Barrios 2. I gotta get, even though he's not the most skilled guy, I have to give respect to Barrios off of the guys he's defeated, right? So I'll go with Barrios 2. Number 3, I will actually go with I'll go with Stanionis. Even though I think Jin Sasaki can beat Stanionis, I will give Stanionis respect because he has a better resume than Jin, and he's got more experience at the top level than Jin. So I'll say Stanionis is 3, right? So we'll go Norman, Barrios, Stanionis. 4, I will go with Alexis. Yes, I will go Alexis Rocha at 4, just because he's been a very consistent fighter. He beat Blair Cobbs. He's been there with some good names. He probably is one of the better names in the weight class at this point. I thought he beat Carrillo, and Carrillo is a Mexican Olympian. He should have got the decision over him. He's got one of the better resumes, even though it's not a great resume as far as wins. I would say he's 4, and then 5. I'm gonna say Jin Sasaki's 5. I think Jin is 5. A lot of you guys know probably say Karen. Karen would be my 6, and the reason I put Karen 6 is because Karen, even though he looked good against Boots, bro, Karen fought 24 rounds against Boots, and he probably won in the fight a combined. In both fights, he probably won a combined 7 rounds. And so if you have 24 rounds against a fighter and you lose 17 of them, I'm sorry, like, you lost. You lost. Hell nah, BT. We ain't finna disrespect Karen. My boy went 24 rounds with the demon himself. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Let me think about that. Let me rethink my ranking, because somebody mentioned Giashov. I think Giashov actually is a top 5 welterweight, even though Giashov has left some things to be desired. I think Giashov would have a case to be in the top 5. Let me see. Let me, because you guys asked me off the cuff. Let me think about it. Where's Giashov at? Where's his name at? Shotgun Giashov. Why is Giashov not popping up? Let me see. Let me go revisit Shakram Giashov's resume, because he's got a pretty decent resume. I know he beat a couple decent fighters. He would definitely be in the top 5 just off of the fact that he's undefeated and he's highly ranked. But Giashov 17-0, 6 knockouts. See, Giashov hasn't really had many high-level opponents to speak of. He fought Emmanuel Taylor 7 years ago when Emmanuel Taylor was very faded. He fought Harold Calderon, who I know very well from South Florida. Calderon had a good record on paper. It was very padded. He was 27-0, but Harold is not in the one-level fighter. And then he beat Pablo Cesar Cano, who's a good veteran fighter. I got respect for Pablo Cesar Cano. He's got over 40, damn near 50 fights. Tough Mexican, who's beat guys like Jorge Linares and Mauricio Herrera, Silverio Ortiz. Okay, so let me redo my list. So Giashov will be my top 5. I'll go Norman, Stanionis. No. Norman, Barrios, Stanionis. Giashov before. I'll put Karen 5 only because he did go 24 rounds of Boots, and he did, but he did lose conclusively. So we still don't know what the hell Karen is. I feel like, you can make a case for Rocha, and I still think you can make a case for Jin, because Jin has a high knockout ratio and he fought Brian. So I'll say, out of respect, Karen 5 going 24 rounds, and then honorable mention, we'll say Jin and Rocha. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. So Norman, Barrios, Stanionis, what's his name? Giashov, Karen, honorable mention, Jin and Rocha. I think that's a fair list. But there's guys in that top 5 that I named that I think Jin could put to sleep. And I think one of those guys is Stanley Honest. Nesty official says, what about Rohan? Ooh, see? Maybe welterweight is better than I think, because I forgot Rohan Polanco. BT, is Giashov the real deal 147? Can he cook at 147? I think he's good. I think if he would have got the Stanionis fight, I think he could have beat Stanionis. I think he could have outboxed him. He's one of the better fighters out there. I'm not gonna sit here and say like I'm super high on Giashov, but Giashov can box, he can punch, and he's an above average athlete. So that'll give him a chance against anyone. Now, I forgot to mention Rohan Polanco. So let me see. I gotta keep doing my list. That's why when you guys ask me these things off the cuff, it's hard. You forget about fighters. You know, let me see, because I like Polanco. To me, Polanco is really good. Polanco might be the kind of guy that could give me Brian Norman some trouble, but who knows, man? Brian Norman looks like he's different. So we're going to learn a lot about Rohan Polanco in his next fight, because Rohan Polanco was fighting the last guy that I think gave Brian Norman Jr. a tough fight, which was Quentin Randall. Good, solid, 18-fight veteran, right? He's fighting him on the Zeno Zayas card. But let me see. Polanco's beat, let me see, Cesar Rayman Francis. That was a good win. Keith Hunter, good, decent win. Tyreek Saina, decent win. Baby and Maidana, decent win. Damn, Polanco might be top 5 too. See, welterweight's a little bit better than people get. See, this doing this right here, guys, is letting me know that welterweight's actually better than it's getting credit for. It's just the guys aren't big names yet, because these guys got to be in big fights. They got to build their names up more. So let me reevaluate again. Norman, Barrios, Stanionis. I'll go with I'm gonna go Polanco at 4. I think Polanco. I like Polanco a lot. I do like him a lot. Polanco be 4. 5, I'm gonna say Giashov, and then honorable mention will be Rocha, Suzaki, and Karen. There you go. So Rocha, Suzaki, and Karen can all be honorable mention, but my top 5 would be, Norman, Barrios, Stanionis, Polanco, Giashov. Those are my top 4 right now. So there you go. And that one I'm gonna actually stick with. I'm gonna stick with that top 4. I think that's a good, solid top 4. Or top 5, I should say, top 5. I can't put Jin in the top 5 because he didn't beat any top guys and didn't win any rounds against Norman. I'm not putting him in the top 5. Like, I like Jin. I'm the president of the Jin Sasaki American fan club, but Jin Sasaki, his competition isn't great. I think his resume, though, I will say that I think his resume is better than you guys give it credit for. A lot of you guys shit on his resume because you guys just don't know fighters in Asia, and that's okay. Like, a lot of those guys weren't big names. But Jin fought some decent fighters. Like, he fought Keito Obara. Keito Obara was a world title challenger. Keito Obara has fought for a world title, right? And Keito Obara is not no can. And Keito Obara can punch. Keito Obara has a legitimate puncher who had 23 knockouts in 26 of his wins. Jin Sasaki stopped him, right? So that, to me, that's a good win. Look at a guy like maybe let me see some other guys. Like, look at Joe Noine. Joe Noine is another guy. Let me go to screenshot. I'm gonna show you guys. I can show you guys better than I can tell you. Because you guys are talking bad about Jin's resume. And I'm not saying it's a great resume, so don't take this as like, oh, I'm saying Jin has this great resume and he fought all killers. But what I am saying is that he fought better guys than you guys are giving him credit for. Because I always say in boxing, I say it in life, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. Is Jin Sasaki, has he fought a bunch of great people? No. But has he fought a bunch of bums? No. He's fought good, competent, solid professionals. Because guess what, guys? In order to get in the rankings, there's I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen, but there's 2,567 active welterweight professional boxers in the world right now. So in order to get into the top 15 out of 2,567, you got to fight someone that's, decent, someone that has some skills, that can punch, that can do something. Now, are the guys that Jin fought at the highest level? No, they're not. But they're not bums. And guess what, guys? I'm going to prove it to you. So here we go. Joe Noine. We'll start with him. Joe Noine. 25-3, 23, 5-2 with 11 knockouts. On paper, not the greatest record, but when you actually check under the hood and you look at who did Joe Noine fight, right? So Joe Noine fought first of all, he fought Satoshi Shimizu. So Satoshi Shimizu is a guy that fights in a lower weight class. He did beat him. He was an Olympian. I believe he medaled. Noine is a bigger guy. We won't go too crazy over Satoshi Shimizu, right? We won't go crazy over that one, right? He fought Kenichi Ogawa, who also is a former world title challenger at a lower weight class, had a draw with him. So he's fought some guys. Noine fought some guys at the world level, but he fought them in a lower weight category. He fought Liam Wilson, who a lot of you guys know, fought Oscar Valdez at 130, right? So the guy's really like a 30-pounder. He fought Jin. Jin knocked him out. And then after Jin fought him, Daniel Yulusinov, who by the way, Daniel Yulusinov, I'll tell you this right now. If Daniel Yulusinov gets active and he gets the opportunities to fight, he'll smoke a lot of these dudes. I'll tell you right now, if we're talking about top 5 talents at welterweight, if Daniel Yulusinov gets active and gets the luxury to have an actual career in boxing, he is hands down a top 5 talent, and I would bet that he has a great chance of beating anybody at welterweight because he really should have been champion already years ago. But Noine fought Yulusinov, he fought Suzaki, and he's fought guys on the world level and beat them at a low weight category. So he's not a bum, but he's not a welterweight either, so we won't go too crazy over that. Now, I mentioned Keito Obara. Keito Obara is a guy that fought on the world level. Obara had 26 wins, right? 26-5-1. Been knocked out a couple of times. 23 of those 26 wins were by knockout, and a couple of those knockouts were late knockouts. Because if you look at this fight right here against Yuki Nagano, 7th round knockout. If you look at but he's had some knockouts later on in fights early in his career. He fought this guy who was 23-4 for the OEPF title, knocked him out in the 12th rounds. So he's a guy that not only was he a competent fighter, but he had punching power that carried on later into fights. Look, I'm showing you guys. He fought guys he fought guys and he knocked them out in the 9th round, the 12th round. And he fought Jin. Look, he challenged for the world title against Edward Troyanovsky. He lost. He got his ass whooped, but he was on that level. He fought Kudratilo Abdulkakarov, who many of you guys may remember was linked to fight Spence. So he's been on that world level. He actually beat Shoki Sakai as well, who Jin also fought. And he actually knocked out Takuru Kobata, who just fought Sora Tanaka, who's a young prospect, and beat him better than Sora beat him, right? So this is not a bad win at all. Obara can fight. Obara is a solid professional fighter. Jin knocked him out in a really exciting fight. Jin lost to Andy Hiroka, right? Because he failed to make way for the titles, and Andy's just better than him. Andy's a better fighter than him. And Andy is probably going to fight Gary Anton Russell for the title. And I think when that happens, he's going to beat Gary Anton Russell. He's going to be a fighter that becomes champion at 140 and probably 147 one day. Top of the fighter. Kaki Yuba. This is a fight in Japan. This is one of those fights in Japan. People thought Jin would lose. Kaki Yuba 7-0. Now he's 11-4. He's lost 4 fights since then. But look, if I use your guys' logic, because you guys do this with boots, he got knocked out by Jin, and now he can't stop getting knocked out. So Jin Sasaki ruined this dude. But this is a guy in Yuba that a lot of people in Japan thought would beat Jin Sasaki at that time. So there's him. Yeah, he doesn't have a strong resume, but he has a couple of guys that he fought that were really, really, solid professionals. Kwame Obala, let's go to him. Kwame Obala, if you watch that fight, you guys thought Norman was bigger than Suzaki. Kwame Obala is massive. He's a big guy at the weight. Again, probably not a guy that fought in a lighter weight category, but he filled out at welterweight. He was big at welterweight, and Jin stopped him in 7. And so, probably not the best win with Kwame Obala, but I would say for Jin, his fights against Shoki Sakai, tough fighter, crafty, knows how to survive. Shoki Sakai's had well over 40 fights, taking everybody the distance, and he's fought some punchers. Good journeyman opponent. Obara, legitimate puncher, fringe world level guy. And then he's fought Andy Hiroka, and he's fought those guys. So yeah, I think Jin's record is better than you guys give him credit for, honestly. Not saying it's great. I'm not saying he's fighting killers. I'm not saying that he shouldn't step up his competition at some point. But he fought some decent guys. If you say Rocha over Karen, that's ridiculous. No, I changed the list. I thought about it. So Rocha, Jin, and no, Rocha, Jin, and Karen are honorable mention. They're not even in the top 5. They're all honorable mention. I had Norman, Barrios, Stanionis, Polanco, and Guillashaw. Those are my top 5 right now of this new crop of welterweights. No Ellis or Ben. I can't put Conor Ben there because he hasn't fought at welterweight in years, so he's not a welterweight. His last fight wasn't even at welterweight, and his fight before that wasn't at welterweight. And then Ellis is good too, and I think he has the pedigree to be at welterweight, but he has to kind of rebound. I think right now, if I ranked Ellis, he'd probably be somewhere in the 6 to 7 range if I did a top 10. Blair Cobbs would beat Jin Sasaki's ass. He might. That'd be a shootout. I love to see it. I think that's damn near pick 'em. Rashidi Ellis would fuck up Suzaki too. He's the more skilled fighter and he's the more experienced fighter. But let's not act like Rashidi Ellis don't fade after about 6 rounds. After about 5 rounds, he fades. So after about 5 rounds, if he don't hurt Suzaki and get him out of there, like if he don't do what Brian Norman did, he might be cooked in the later rounds. We saw what Villa did to him in the latter part of that fight. Huh? Where'd you go? Okay. Yeah. Let me see. Jin versus Cobb. Jin versus Cobbs is the issue with Jin needing a lot of rest is, quite frankly, he could miss out on the weakest state of the welterweight division for years. You're right. Because I'm gonna tell you guys. Can I tell you guys a name that I haven't even said? We're almost 2 hours into this live. I gotta end it soon, but I'm gonna tell you guys a name that I think is gonna emerge that I haven't even mentioned yet. You guys talking about all these dudes. I'm gonna tell you guys that I'm thinking about less than a year is gonna be in the top 5 that I haven't mentioned this live. I'm gonna show you guys who I'm talking about. All right, so hold on, let me pull them up right quick because you guys. I wish one of y'all would have mentioned this dude because if you guys would have mentioned this guy, I would have went on for I would have been talking about him for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna pull this box record. I'm gonna show you guys a fighter that I think is gonna emerge and really be a dangerous fighter for pretty much anybody in the division that doesn't have a big name right now. I'll show you guys. Watch. I'll show you. So look, let's go to screen share. So look, if you look at the current welterweight rankings, right? You guys are gonna see a lot of names. I'm sure you're not familiar with. I'm sure you're gonna see guys like Greg Outlaw. I don't even know who Greg Outlaw is. Victor Rodriguez Jr. I don't know who that is. I had to do some research. A lot of guys. Jose Ramon Vasquez, right? Christopher Guerrero. Who are these fighters in the top 15 at welterweight? There's a guy in this top 15 who I know you guys don't know about because nobody's mentioned his name. We've been talking about welterweight for almost 2 hours. This guy right here, number 14, IBF contender, Vadim Musayev from Russia. I think this dude is going to emerge as a top contender in the next year because this dude right here, I mean, I've seen him spar a bunch back in South Florida. He's got pretty high pedigree as an amateur, and this dude has some of the heaviest hands I've ever seen from anybody. Like he's really he's not like Jin is a big time puncher, but Jin don't got the boxing skills. This guy actually has boxing skills and he's punching like that and he's a southpaw. And I really and truly believe that in the next year or so, he hasn't fought anybody yet. Like he hasn't fought any names that we know here. He's pretty much been packing everybody up and knocking them out. But I think that this guy in the next, year, because he's already ranked, he's ranked. I think this guy's gonna emerge as somebody you guys gotta watch out for. So, he's 32. So I'm sure in his next 1 or 2 fights he'll probably fight for a regional title and a win, and he'll crack the top 5 as that normally goes in boxing, and he'll be someone to watch. So if you guys don't know that name, trust me when I tell you, Vadim Musayev, that's a guy that I think is gonna bring a lot of smoke for guys at welterweight. Straight up. He's 32. He's 32 like a lot of these Russians. He's 32, so he don't got a lot of time, but he's gonna be in a notable fight, and I think he'll have a chance to win because he's more of a sophisticated fighter than a guy like Jin, and he can punch. But guys, look, on that note, I've had a great time. We're gonna end it right here. This does conclude the long form content for the Jin Sasaki or the Brian Norman Jr. Jin Sasaki fight coverage that's been going on for seemingly almost a year now. So it's been a great time, and I appreciate everybody that's been along the journey with me for this ride. I still had a couple of YouTube shorts to put out for Brian Norman, but other than that, we're pretty much done here. So the next live and the next videos are going to be things that I haven't talked about in boxing. So, you know, Canelo and Abdullah Mason, Sam Noakes, and Tank talking about he don't care for boxing no more. All those things. You know, we'll talk about those things, and I got other videos planned. But listen, you guys take care. Thank you for the support. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from being here. So until next time, take care, guys.